The Art Beat, a weekly program putting you in touch with artists and arts events from the J.T. and Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts at Texas Tech University. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Art Beat. I'm your host, Peter Martins, and I have the pleasure this week of being here with Andy Stetson, who is the director of the School of Music at Texas Tech.
Hey, everybody. Andy's
in his second year as the full permanent director of the School of Music, and as such, we are expecting him during this program to have a perfectly formed panoptic view of everything that's going on at School of Music, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's also, I've been here 12 years, so beyond that. I mean, from the trumpet studio, you can see some things, but from the director's chair, you can see it all. So, yeah, I have a pretty good sense of it.
Well, why don't you start then by just talking us through what kind of ensembles. You know, we're getting to the end of the spring semester. Lots of ensembles and individuals have concerts. What sort of ensembles are performing this time of year?
Well, this time of year, it's really everything. You know, the spring semester in a School of Music, you can't really pass by our recital hall without hearing something going on, you know, morning, noon, and night. There's always a rehearsal. There's always a concert every single night. Right now, recital season for students. So our students are doing their capstone recitals. Graduate students giving their final lecture recitals all over the calendar right now. Undergraduates giving junior and senior recitals. So students are performing really every night of the week. So that's one big aspect of the amount of performing going on.
And while we're talking about that, because of the volume of students and somewhat of our space limitations, where else might someone in town see an actual student recital from a student in the School of Music?
Well, sure, yeah. There's our recital hall, of course, Hemley Recital Hall, newly renovated. If you haven't seen it, come visit us and check it out.
That's beautiful.
Also, just in our building, we have what we call the choir hall, or room 010. I'm not sure. But it's a rehearsal space that we use as a performing venue for a lot of our recitals. And then on campus as well, there's the Kent Hance Chapel, which is just on the southeast corner of campus. Almost every night for the rest of the semester, there's going to be a student recital there. And then a lot of voice recitals will use local churches. St. John's United Methodist is right across the street from us, has quite a few. And then, you know, a handful of others all over town. So it's not uncommon that any night of the week and anywhere in town you might run into a School of Music student giving a recital.
Yeah, and we're certainly grateful to partners in other divisions of campus and in the community as well for making this work. We couldn't, literally, I don't think the School of Music could do it without you.
Oh, absolutely we could not. We do not have enough space to house the amount of performing we do, so we branch out all over the city.
So how about some of the larger groups? What are the sort of ensembles that one might encounter this time of year?
Yeah, sure. So again, kind of anything you can think of. But the bigger ones, of course, we've got our orchestra, which will be combined with our opera later on in the semester. Coming up soon, the Symphonic Wind Ensemble, the Symphonic Band, and the Concert Band will have their final concert cycles of the year. So there'll be 3 full concerts with concert band music. Of course, our choirs, which right now the choirs are on tour. They're down in Houston giving performances at local high schools to just do some recruiting and get the word out about what Texas Tech is all about up here. So that's the band, the orchestra, the choir. Of course, our jazz ensembles as well, our jazz combos, which are smaller jazz groups, but then we have 2 big bands, the jazz orchestra and the jazz ensemble. They'll be performing later on this month. So there's really kind of anything you want.
And that kind of covers things that you might typically see also in high school, right? So the high school programs move into those ensembles at the college level. Can you think of a couple ensembles as examples of things that students who are coming to Texas Tech would be able to encounter that they would never have had the chance to do in high school?
Well, sure. There's a special event on May 5th is our steel drum ensemble. So our steel band, that's pretty unique, I would say, that we have a full set of steel drums, and they rehearse each week. This is a big anniversary concert, so they're bringing back alumni from the last several decades to come perform along with them. So that will be a really fun one and pretty unique. We've also got a series of guest artists all of the time. That's one of the really neat things about being at a large university is that we can attract guest artists to come and perform. So I won't give too many specifics, so some of them might have happened already by the time this airs, but there's a bassoon guest artist tonight. For example, there's trumpet guests and things like that all the time. Faculty recitals as well. So I think that's one thing that maybe in high school you don't see as much. Your choir director or your band director might not perform for you, a solo recital on their instrument. But here, because we have experts on everything. So there's a piano recital with Sehi Jin on the 14th coming right up. And that will be a really excellent treat on some of our new pianos in our recital hall. We've got a brand new Steinway Spirio RD and that's going to be an exciting, way to test out that new piano that we got
in the new acoustics of the new hall.
Yeah.
So you mentioned faculty recitals, and if you can remember way back when you were, in the trumpet studio as the faculty member, what are the expectations there? How often would you do a recital?
Well, I always try to do one every year, because that's a big part of our program. We expect our students to do it. So at the end of the undergraduate degree, there's a junior recital for everybody. If you're a performance major, there's a senior recital. DMA students have to give 4 recitals. And that's another way, I think, to incorporate into the teaching atmosphere is sort of, we're coaching you on how to give a recital, but now come watch me do one and see what it feels like from the audience standpoint when someone's giving one. And then you can kind of model behavior back and forth about what a recital is. So I would try to do one every year. And I think a lot of our faculty kind of follow that model of they're experts on in their field and give basically a presentation, which is the recital each year on campus.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you pleased to not be in that realm anymore in that respect, or do you miss performing?
I still perform quite a bit. I was just in Steamboat Springs with an orchestra playing in their trumpet section. I'll be traveling to New York later in June to perform with an orchestra there. So I try to get out as much as possible. I do miss giving recitals, but recitals take so much time. To put on an hour of music where it's just basically you and a pianist is so much time. So do I miss spending all that time? Yeah, kind of, but I don't have the time to do that anymore. So that's kind of a drag.
Right. So you just mentioned a second ago being there and working with a pianist, and I wonder if we could take a minute and talk about what I kind of see as the unsung heroes of any music school at any university or any context, really. The folks that usually fall under the banner of accompanists, right? So these are the folks that their job is to make the students sound good. And I think you've worked with that core in developing that group in the School of Music recently. So how does that work?
Yeah, a lot of music's written for ensembles that, in the concertos, for example, we're a solo instrument and a full 100-person orchestra. And we can't really provide that 100-person orchestra for every student recital. And so things are, reduced for just piano. But that harmonic language as part of what's going on with a solo instrument is really important for audiences to hear. You wouldn't want to go to a recital and just hear one voice of something much larger. And you also wouldn't want to just hear a single instrument play for an hour. I mean, a really bad trumpet recital would probably be 1 hour of solo unaccompanied trumpet. And I've seen some of those, and they're not something I ever really want to see, and I'm a trumpet player. So yeah, the piano is an important aspect of it to get, especially for these solo instruments that are playing essentially a single pitch all the time, to get the harmonic structure of what a composer is intending. So we need a lot of that for every recital, and so we have a number of what we call collaborative pianists on faculty. There's a number of people in town that freelance. The demand for it is so high we actually can't fully cover it with the amount of faculty that we have. We're giving more than 300 performances a year, of which more than 200 of them are recitals. That's a lot of piano need. So, and what's kind of funny about that to me all of the time is that, you have a student who's stressed out, really worried, like, oh, this is my big moment. I'm giving my one recital. This 4-year period, I've got my one big recital, and I'm really worried about it. And then we have collaborative pianists that are like, well, this is my 10th recital today. If they're doing 5 or 6 in a single weekend and 25 or 30 in a semester, it's just kind of funny that they really are unsung heroes, because they're playing often more notes and much more demanding music along with these recitals, and they're doing so many of them. It's just kind of a funny disparity there.
Right. And at the same time, as you suggest, they have to be coaches both musically and personally, maybe edges into counseling at some points in time of that learning process. Yeah, well, if any of those folks are listening in town, thank you very much for what you do. It's a wonderful service. And one of the things I've noted as my children have grown and learned music is there is some pressure nowadays with the technology we have available to have students play along with recordings.
Oh,
right?
about the same.
Right. Do you want to speak more about that?
Yeah, it's kind of like listening to a recording versus going to a live performance. It's really, really hard to be as moved by like a digital reproduction of live sound. There's something bigger that is transmitted emotionally and artistically when you're really in the room and you can see it and you can feel it. So that's one thing. But then there's also just the nuance of a performance all of the time a subtle change of tempo, different dynamic contrasts that maybe are even spontaneous that you can't really recreate when you're just performing with a recording that cannot change. And that's what makes performing exciting sometimes. Maybe you're playing something that's very exciting, and then you take a bit of a longer pause than you ever would, and it makes it more exciting, and the audience is on the edge of their seat waiting for the next entrance. Well, you can't do that if you're playing with a click track that is going to require you to come in. And
Right.
so it's just much more exciting, and it's more authentic music making when it's live that way. So yeah, we need that, and it's you can tell even if it's all of the same sounds essentially, it's not really produced by another human, and in that moment it just doesn't feel like authentic music making.
No, that's a good way to put it. And I think that speaks to what a lot of us feel is some of the value beyond the aesthetic experience of music, that you're actually being trained to present yourself in any way to an audience. And a lot of our students who will go on and maybe not have careers in music will be able to carry forward those performance skills essentially into these other areas.
Well, we think the way music is maybe consumed more generally in people's lives. You think about big moments like weddings or funerals and things like that. You're not as moved when it's just a recording. So you can tell how much that matters in those big life moments, or even things like film. It's definitely a different moment when a live orchestra has accompanied what's going on in a film versus a digital reconstruction of it. I mean, I know that is a recording in a sense, but when it's live recorded along with the film, it's a very different thing. That's why Hollywood does that.
Right.
I mean, they could save a lot of money by just producing MIDI thing, but it doesn't sound the same. It's not as nuanced. It's not as beautiful, and it doesn't speak to the heart as well.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And we're getting kind of philosophical here. I love it. I'm going to ask you to zoom out and maybe get a little philosophical. No, in a different way. It's great.
I do that.
So in terms of kind of the scope and the service of a school of music, and the one at Texas Tech in particular, we just had on campus a few days ago a process that happens once a decade at the most, right?
Funny you mentioned scope, yeah.
The accreditation process by the National Association for Schools of Music, and each one of our schools in the College of Visual and Performing Arts on campus has one of these accreditation things. Music just went through its own. Anything that you gleaned from the site visitors who were just on campus in your conversations with them about new trends as far as what schools of music are offering as far as performance opportunities, or maybe in particular to our case, what they saw?
The visit was very great, and in full disclosure, this is the first time I've ever gone through anything like that, so I wasn't fully sure what to expect. Wasn't sleeping a lot, getting ready for them to be here. You prepare a lot of materials, because you helped prepare the I think 250-page self-study of everything we're doing in our program. So they review that, and then they're here and they're visiting. But in the exit interview, they spent an hour with me talking through their findings and what would come next. And the thing that struck me, and I think was really a beautiful sentiment that is unique to Texas Tech and our School of Music, is that we do take pride in the fact that we put our students first. But that's kind of a platitude that almost every school would say. Of course you put students first, because that's the right thing to do and that's the right thing to say. But when the part of the visit, they have students come meet with them and they have some questions for them. They leave it an open forum for students to talk about what their experiences are. And typically in a school our size, they might get 10 or 15 students to come to a meeting. Usually schools bribe them with a free meal or some pizza or a door prize. I don't know how they do it. But they were stunned that of our undergraduate students, more than 100 showed up for the meeting. And our graduate student, half of our graduate student cohort was able to show up for these meetings, which is astonishing to them. It's usually really just a handful. They actually needed more time because they couldn't really get to everybody. And so in the exit interview, what they remarked to me is, we hear that a lot, that students come first, but we'd never hear it from students. But here at Texas Tech, we heard from the students that they really are first, and they feel that from all of the faculty, from staff, from the administration, from everybody, that they're the most important part of our program, and they are. And that was just really, it was neat to hear that from 3 visitors who had really never been here before, didn't know about our program, or just kind of here to study it. And they left feeling inspired by that. I actually wrote to our students to let them know, because it was just so amazing to hear that our students feel that way, and that it's a real thing here.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking to you for this period of time, and all of these students that we're putting first on the campus of Texas Tech. I invite all of the audience here to come and see some sort of performance between 1 and 100 people on stage at a time. You kind of have your pick this time of year. So thank you to Director Andy Stetson from the School of Music at Texas Tech.
Come check us out. Check out our website. You can see any performance anytime. And if you don't check out our website, you can just show up, and there probably is something happening 7:30 or 8 o'clock in Hemley Recital Hall every night of the week.
Thank you very much. The Art Beat, a weekly program putting you in touch with artists and arts events from the J.T. and Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts at Texas Tech University.